As controversial as this is going to sound, I've always quite liked BMW's iX. Now I get it's not everyone's cup of tea when it comes to the way the car looks, and I would say it's probably not one of BMW's best efforts. But if you're willing to look past all of that, what we've had is a really good to drive, big, sporty, all-electric SUV. And now BMW tell me they've made it even better. Welcome back to Barcelona, welcome to the newly revised BMW iX, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now before we start on this week's road test review of BMW's revised iX, it would be silly of me not to remind you just to make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. And once you've done that, make sure you then press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you get notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you watch the review, if you enjoy it, and I sincerely hope you do, then of course make sure you give it a little thumbs up, and of course, as always, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars that we feature on the channel, such as the new BMW iX, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. Now before I start, a little caveat. I'm down in Barcelona with this car here, and I'm in a public area, so you will see people walking in front, and there's a man over there playing his ghetto blaster. It's still called that, right? Yeah. So if there's music and stuff and laughter and people jogging in the background, apologies, but I'm just going to put up with it because I thought the view was quite nice. So there we go. Right, the BMW iX. Controversial car, always was. A lot of people thought when it came out when BMW had lost their mind. I personally didn't. The looks didn't win me over at first, but over time I've started to get used to the car, and I must admit I do quite like it. And it's the same always with BMW, isn't it? In some respects with their styling, you know, it's sometimes they're controversial at first, but then 2 or 3 years down the line you start to go, oh, that makes more sense. But it wasn't really the styling that was my biggest issue with the car. It was certainly, because we drove it in all different guises, so of course we drove it in the X-Drive 40, X-Drive 50 and of course the bombastic M60. But I felt the lead-in car just didn't give enough range and efficiency for the price and for the type of car that it was. And that's one area where BMW have made big improvements to the iX. And that's the car that I've got here today. Now I've got to add another little caveat here as well, in terms of its trim. This is an X-Drive 45, so it's the lead-in car to the range, but it's an M Sport. On the outside. On the inside it's a Sport because it's slightly different spec because I'm using a foreign car. When it comes to UK, this will have a slightly different interior, but I'll talk about that when I get to it. Right, if all that's clear and you're happy, let's crack on with the review of the new BMW iX. However, as always, before we do start, let's take a brief snapshot about the main changes to the car. So launched in 2021, the iX remains the flagship in BMW's electric SUV range. This is a midlife refreshed, focus on small design changes, but big change to the dynamics, the trim, and importantly the batteries for better efficiency. All models remain dual motor, with power outputs ranging from 408 horsepower in the X-Drive 45 to 659 horsepower in the range-topping M70 X-Drive. The car is now capable of up to 426 miles on a single charge in the X-Drive 60. And prices in the UK will start from just under £74,000 and go up to just over £113,000 depending on the model before options. Right, let's just get this out of the way. Let's take the bull by the horns and just get the styling side out of the way first. The way the car looks, okay? I grew to like the iX. I think it's I'm not going to say a handsome car, I think it's a good looking car in some respects. I really liked the way that BMW had done it. It took a bit of getting used to, and it is spec dependent, okay? But they have changed elements of the design of it, and I have to say, I think it's for the better. I really like the way the car looks now. It's not perfect. I'm not going to sit there and say it's the best looking car in its class. You know, Polestar 3 is by far a nicer looking car, but I do like it. Changes to the front. New design of light here, okay? So you get your matrix LED sort of like headlight things at the side. Where they used to have the sort of like this horizontal sort of like ticks, inverted ticks there, you've now got the sort of like the lamps that go down diagonally. And diagonals are a bit of a thing you'll see here because there's a different grille here with hay, which was obviously the big controversial area. The front's a bit more muscular and chiselled. Now this is an M Sport on the outside, as I say, so this is an M Sport front end. This is what you get, which is slightly more chiselled and butch looking. You get the sort of, there's less black plastic as well around it than some BMWs have. You still get the gloss black plastic down at the bottom, you know, sort of like the air intake at the bottom there for all the cooling as well. But the grille has changed. That's the bit that has changed here. So now you don't get the sort of like little rhombus sort of like things, little diamond pattern on it. They've now got the diagonal sort of like lines on it, unless you go for the M70, which gets horizontal lines across it. And I'll put some B-roll up of the M70 because that is I quite like the grille on the M70 as well. That's nice. You get now the option of the iconic glow around the car on the 45 and the 60. It's standard on the M70. So if you want to draw even more attention to this big bucktooth rabbit front end, then you can have it light up. Now I like that. I had it in my iX2. I quite like it. And I think it looks good on this. You still get the BMW badge recessed between the kind of big nostrils there. It's still the washer fluid reservoir opening there, but it's lost its blue ring. No other blue rings around the car now, so they've done away with that on the electric cars there. Bigger air intakes on the side there as well. So again, this is all sort of like more chiselled and more sort of like, you know, sort of like square jawed almost, you know, and you get more air intake there now as well. So that helps with airflow, which is going to help with efficiency as well. But yeah, I like it. I really do. As I say, it's not perfect, and I get there's some elements of it, there's some angles they catch it at, it's not ideal. And I like it in this colour, which is a new colour, which I think is what they call Ocean Race Blue, which came from the 4 Series Coupe, and it really looks good on this. But yeah, I do like it. Do you? Inside profile, it hasn't really changed. It's exactly as we've seen with the iX before, where you've got the squared off blisters for the wheel arches, but then the round wheel arches themselves. Wheel sizes, 21-inch standard, optional 22s and 23s depending on trim level as well. Again, I'm told these aren't exactly the M Sport alloys that we're getting in the UK, so that's slightly different. What I don't like, however, is this silver plastic, or the silvery gold champagne trim. I really don't like that. Never have. BMW, why you offer it, I don't know. It just looks cheap and horrible to me. But you can have this done in a gloss black finish. I think BMW used to call it shadow line, or you can do it in like a dark silver kind of gunmetal, which personally is probably what I would do. Still got the recessed door handles with a touchpad. The doors are still frameless again, which is quite cool. Still a reasonably big car, nearly 5 meters long, but it's not particularly tall. That's the one thing I will say about it. It's still quite a reasonable sort of size of car. No privacy glass on this one. You need to check on the spec of that. But yeah, as I say, it's not the sort of like, you know, it hasn't changed much from the side profile. Just the front and the back through the styling changes. You still get this sort of slight nod to the Hofmeister kink here, with of course the iX logo embossed in the rear pillar that all BMWs are now having. Doors don't go quite down to the sills, but you know, far enough down, it's not too bad. But yeah, as I say, it's probably, as I say, the area they've left well alone. But on the whole, I don't think it's a bad looking car. Or is that just me? Now, the rear of the car has changed ever so slightly, because on M Sport you get a new rear diffuser down there, and you can also have smoke tail lights on it as well. So that's really the two main areas that has actually changed at the rear of the car. But it's still quite, you know, the tailgate wraps sort of like round the side. You get the big roof spoiler that extends out to help with airflow, high mounted brake light, rear wash wipe, yay. Big BMW badge with a camera inset in there as well, which is good. Again, you see it's lost the blue ring round it. Number plate inset there with the handle just underneath there. I think you can also get it with a kick opening, you know, an easy access opening, and then just your iX badge over there and your model designation across there. So, apologies about the music. What do you think? I like it. As I say, the iX had always grown on me anyway. I always quite liked the way that the model has started to look. It's quite spec dependent. I like it in darker colours, such as this, you know, with a black trim round. I always thought it looked quite, it toned it down a little bit, made it look less, well, gawping, for want of a better word. But I think the changes they've made look good, because they've brought it in line with two of the new concept cars that are coming out. They've shown, new class, which is previewing a smaller electric SUV, in other words the iX3, and a smaller electric saloon car, in other words the new 3 Series. So it's taken elements of those and brought them into production, and I think it really has worked. And as I say, I do see a big improvement with the car. But let's be honest, it doesn't really matter what I think, does it? It matters what you think, because you're out there writing checks for these cars. Have they done enough? Is it still as bad looking as it always has, or have you gotten used to it now? As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Ignoring the musical background, we'll move on to practicality. Probably the one area that still disappoints me in some respects, because it's just a 500 litre boot, which to me isn't that great for this size of car. It should be better. However, it's a reasonably practical shape. Now obviously I don't have all my suitcases, but I do have some bags with me, and you can see there's certainly plenty of room for those. And of course there's certainly underfloor storage for cables and luggage nets and an extra soft bag or jackets and things underneath there. Rigid parcel shelf, which is quite nice in some respects, but obviously a roller blind might be better if you want to just fold it and get extra height out to the boot. There you go. Yeah, what I do like about it is you can see sort of like the construction of the car down the side with this composite Kevlar material they used to build the car, that you used to get on the i3. I've always liked that. I think that's pretty cool. Right, you can 40-20-40 split under your seat, so if you fold those down, and you can do from here just at the touch of a button, and they will fold flat, so you've got a nice flat floor all the way through. That will take total capacity up to 1,750 litres. And you can still tow with the car, so you can get an optional tow bar with the vehicle. However, its towing capability isn't that great because it will only tow a braked trailer up to 750 kilos, so do be aware of that. But yeah, it's a good size of boot. In fairness, it's not as big as some you get, like say an iX3, which is a bigger boot than this, and although it's a smaller car, and other cars in the class have got bigger boots, but it might just be enough for a family of 4, maybe 5. However, the one area that I didn't really feel the iX lacked in was rear seat accommodation, and actually the accommodation of the rear when you're in here. Let me just explain. So, you've got a flat floor, which is also handy. So you can get 3 abreast across here. You know, it's a good size of rear bench. The other thing that I've always liked about it is the fact that the seats are wrapped around at the side, so you get good shoulder support, and it feels luxurious back here. That's the one thing I will say. It always has. It feels like it's a proper sort of like big, you know, sort of like luxury SUV in the back of this one. You know, now this car's obviously got the big panoramic glass sunroof as well. So again, that floods the car in with light. Now, we're going to talk about trims and stuff when I'm in the front because, as I say, an M Sport has a slightly different interior than this in the UK. This is like a sort of standard sport trim, you know, with this sort of like leather and stuff like that. So this isn't an M Sport interior as such, okay? So just bear that in mind. Fold down armrest, obviously, with your cup holders that spring from the side, nice and easy. You've also got the ability just to pull up the seat sort of cushion there where you've got exposed the isofix points. That's all right. It's not as easy as sort of like, you know, little plastic covers, but at least it's better than having to jab the prongs through between the nice bits of leather on the seat. Rigid aircraft style mat pockets at the back, rear climate control, heated rear seat as well on this particular car. And as I say, you know, in terms of comfort, it's absolutely fantastic. That's my driving position. I mean, you can see the space. I know I'm not a tall man, but, you know, I've got loads of legroom, loads of footroom, and loads of headroom for me. Even 6 foot, I would say. If you were 6 foot, you know, you're going to fit in the back of an iX quite comfortably. So yes, so the rear seat accommodation for the car hasn't changed, but it didn't need to because I think it's one of the best in class. Now up here in the interior, in the front, they haven't really changed an awful lot, but I don't think they needed to. The one thing I've always said about the iX, you know, when it came out 4 years ago, was the interior just looked like from another world. It looked like a concept car interior put in production, you know, and in fairness, they haven't needed to change it because it still looks modern. In fact, I think it looks more modern than the Audi, you know, the Q8 e-tron. I think it even looks better than the, you know, Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV, even with the big hyperscreen thing. I think this just looks great. It's very clear, it's very easy. It looks quite minimal, okay? But actually, you know, there's quite a lot going on in here. Now, of course, you get the sort of the wraparound screen, if you like, that's built onto the stilts that come out of the dashboard. That's the first thing. And you've got BMW's operating system 8.5, so the software's increased on that. And of course, you can use it as a touch screen. There's all your apps there, but you can also use it, you know, with the iDrive, or I call iDrive control here, there's rotary controller here. Oh, what I should say, sorry, before I start there, whilst I was saying this is an M Sport car, this is not an M Sport interior, okay? There's different seats on the M Sport. I'll talk to you about that in a wee second, but this is effectively like a Sport in the UK, okay? It's a bit of a strange spec, this car. Anyway, but you've got, of course, your infotainment screen there. We don't need to go through all of that as usual. It's obviously got things like wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It's got the brilliant BMW navigation system that obviously lets you know where all the charging stations are. And obviously if you've got a route planned and you need to charge on the way, then what it'll do is it'll precondition the battery, and it'll also tell you, I think from memory, it tells you sort of, you know, that updates you on the charging stations itself. In other words, if there's 6 bays and if maybe 4 of them are in use, that type of thing. So it is quite a good system. But as I say, it does precondition the battery before you get to, you know, the charging station to make sure you're not stopped for that long a time. So that's as you see there. Of course, you still get your touchscreen temperature controls there, but they are permanently on, you know, so you do have a bigger climate menu you can go into there to sort of, like, you know, tweak it a little bit more. But if you just want to move vents and things like that, you don't have to use the screen like some manufacturers do. You can just, you know, just alter the vents as you see fit. That's still a manual control on there. And you obviously get heated seats and, you know, heated steering wheel. This one's got ventilated seats as well. Okay, so all of that's there, and it's all nice and easy to use. And I say you can use a touchscreen, or if your passenger's using it, they can use sort of like, you know, the rotary dialer there as well, so which is nice and simple and straightforward. You still get this sort of like big panel here, which is effectively one big haptic button. You know, so if you want to go straight to your media, you press that and it comes up. You want to go to your telephone, you press that. You know, and they're raised lettering, so you can feel them on the move. So although it's one button, you do feel that you're actually touching something, and you can hear, you get that little click as you do it. There's a rotary volume control there for the sound or the audio system, and there's track search there, and of course you get your My Modes button there, you know, for all your different sort of like, you know, modes there. So your silent, your digital art, your relaxed, sport, personal, so you can choose your own thing there, you know, and you can muck around with that to your heart's content really. And then of course you get your driver display, which as usual in BMWs you can change the amount of content that it shows you. You know, you just press the button here, you can show what it actually, how it lays it out. You know, you can bring the screens in, you can take them out. You've got a head-up display, you can alter what you see on the head-up display. There's so much configuration available in the car. It's really quite good, and it's very simple and very easy to use once you've used it a few times. Now, one thing that has changed, or certainly is the option to change, is the steering wheel. So this has got like the sort of the octagonal steering wheel. Now here's the thing, I had an iX2 long-termer and I've been driving off quite a few sort of like BMW product of late, and I've always said the wheels are too thick. This isn't, this is fine, this is exactly the right sort of size. I think this is quite a nice thickness of steering wheel. I don't know why they made them so fat on their other cars, but if you don't like the design of it, you can have a circular wheel now seemingly. But I quite like that. As I say, your hands fall neatly into it, you get a good view of the dashboard there. It's maybe a bit awkward, you know, where it sort of like comes out to a point, you know, maybe if you hold your hands at 10 to 2, but if you're like me and it's 9:15, then, you know, that's quite nice. And then of course you get, as I say, your cruise control buttons over here, your media and telephone over this side, regular column stocks as you see fit. Okay, the other thing I want to discuss is the materials in here, because these are, I think, very, very good, apart from maybe one, which again is this sort of goldy, sort of like silver champagne colour trim. I just don't like that, but the guys here are saying you can have that in a dark silver finish, which personally I would. However, one thing I do want to address is quality, because a lot of people have been saying about BMW dealers, oh, they're not the quality they used to be. I think they're getting back there, I have to say, and I think this is evidence of it. I was having breakfast with one of the BMW guys this morning. They were talking about this, and I said, you know, I feel maybe the quality of the interiors are taking a bit of a backward step. And he really did listen. He was really saying, well, you know, we're making a big effort and this is what we're trying to do. We're trying new materials. And that is true. You know, when you think about it, you know, on the i7, for instance, you know, you can have it with cashmere instead of leather. He said leather's a little bit maybe seen as old luxury in some respects. Now, that's what I'm going to talk about, is these seats, for instance. So the M Sport gets M Sport seats, which are a new design, and they come in a sort of Alcantara and Verganza mix, but you can have a natural leather option if you want it. So again, if you still want that leather, you can have it. These seats here, which are the standard ones in the Sports, these have been redesigned. They don't look at it first, but they have been. So they're slightly longer now in the squab, so they've got slightly more support under the backs of your legs. The head restraints have been reprofiled, and the little recess, kind of plastic hole that's in there, that's been recessed further in so you can't feel it when you're resting your head back. So again, and that's been down to feedback from customers. So that's good. The quality, however, I have to say is really very good. You know, everything feels a lot better than I've seen from Audi. in the last couple of products I've had from them, in fairness, and I never thought I'd say that. But you know, everything feels nice. You get the leather, it goes right up to the top of the doors there. And then when it isn't leather, it's even down the dash here, it's this woven material, which is really nice. It feels good in quality, you know, and it's nice material, it's different. The only plastic is when you get down to the door bins, and they are really thickly moulded, so there's good, you know, they feel substantial. And then the plastic round here, again, it's like BMW of old, it feels good. And then you've got a couple of cup holders in front there and a wireless charging pad as you always had before. Plus you've got storage in here, you know, so like a double height armrest storage area, and I say decent door bins, and you still have, yeah, you still got a glove box in there. So the storage is good on the car as well. But as I say, the quality for me is the one thing that I'm going to take away from it. I've always loved the design, I've always loved the usability of the BMW operating system. I think it's one of the best to use, and it's really good. And it does look confusing at first, I will say that, you know, there's a lot in there, but then when you realise you don't have to use all of that, you can narrow it down, and then once you get used to it, it's a bit like getting a new telephone. Once you know how to use it, you know where everything is, you go straight to it, and it's the same here. So you don't have to worry too much about being overburdened with stuff in there. But as I say, for me, as I say, the design has always been there. It feels way more futuristic than the competition, I think. Even Polestar, and I love the Polestar, this just feels like it's still I can't believe it's 4 years old, but you know, it feels like a car that's still a concept in some respects. But I would change that. I just don't like that champagne-y plastic trim. That doesn't look right to me. But the rest of it, I think, is fantastic. The build quality is good, and the use of materials is exceptional. Big talk is sustainability from BMW as well, as we've seen from them in the past, which is important, especially for younger buyers. We know that's what they like. And as I say, everything feels quality. You know, when you put your indicators on, it feels like a BMW should. So yeah, I'm not going to harp on too much about the interior because I know I talk too much. But yeah, it's the same as we've been used to, with some good improvements. And as I say, it's as good as it always has been as far as I'm concerned, and probably best in class. Now, normally when I talk about usability, I'm standing around the back at the charging flat, but consider old Kanye West across there is blasting out whatever he's blasting out. I've decided to come around the front and try and keep the noise to a minimum. Okay, big changes to the battery. This is the big change for the car, okay? And it was one of the disappointing things, or probably the most disappointing thing with the old car, I felt, certainly with the xDrive 40, you know, which had a 71 kilowatt hour battery, and they said would do up to a range of about 247 miles. The reality was it was more likely to be 200 miles. And when I had the car on test over a week, when I was doing, you know, I did quite a bit of journeys, quite a few journeys in that car, and again, I was getting just around about the 200 miles mark, which wasn't enough in my opinion for a, you know, a 70-odd thousand pound luxury electric SUV. BMW have listened, and that's where the difference is. They've put more cells into the battery. So what was a 71 kilowatt hour battery in the 40 becomes a 94.8 kilowatt hour battery in the 45, okay? So new designation. And that, they say, gives a 30% increase in the battery size to give you up to 374 miles. So even if you knock off the 50 miles, which, you know, for real world running around and stuff, it's still in excess of 300 miles. That's better, and it's better than what you get from Audi with the Q8 e-tron as well. That's an important one. Now, and I think Mercedes as well, the EQE SUV, but I need to check that. Anyway, so that's that. You've also got quicker charging speeds. They're up to 175 kilowatts now. However, in fairness, your 10 to 80% charge will probably be about the same time at 30 minutes, because bear in mind the battery size is increased. So, but again, half an hour's okay. I don't have a problem with that. And BMW say in some respects the first part of the charge is the quicker part, because obviously if that's the bit you stopped at and you just want to get on your way, that faster charge is where they've concentrated on. So it charges up quite quick at the start and before it starts to drop off. So that's good. Okay, so that's the xDrive 45. Then you move up to the xDrive 60, which replaces the old xDrive 50, and that's the one that has the best range of them all. So it used to be 105 kilowatt hour, that battery. That now gets 109 kilowatt hours on that battery. So not a massive increase, but you can now see up to 426 miles out of that car, which is superb in fairness. If you go to the M70, the performance variant, that gets the same battery slightly. I think there's a few point kilowatts differences on that, but that drops to 366 miles. Okay. Both of those charge at the same speeds, 195 kilowatts as before. So reckon on that 30 minutes 10 to 80% charge as always. Now the other thing as well is you get 11 kilowatt onboard charging as standard, but if you want 22 kilowatt onboard charging, you have to option up what they call, I've written here, the technology pack option on the 45 and the 60, but the M70 gets that as standard, okay? And a heat pump is also standard on the car as well. Okay, so we've now got a more powerful car with this xDrive 45, over 400 horsepower, 0 to 60, 5.1 seconds. It's a full second quicker than before, which is, you know, superb. And it wasn't, I didn't really have a problem in some respects with, you know, the old car's power. You know, it was a good, you know, it was good performer car, you know, there was nothing really wrong with it, it's adequate. But obviously if you do need more, if you do feel this is not enough for you, then obviously you can go up to the xDrive 60 or the M70, which is 659 horsepower or something like that. But this is the one that's got the biggest increase of them all. This is the one that's got, you know, the biggest jump in that sense. And I have to say, this is the one that I quite like. I loved the M60 when I drove it up to Scotland. I really, really did. It was a great car, you know, a lot of fun. Oh, hang on, a lot of fun, fast, you know, exactly, you know, sort of like what you want for a big performance SUV. But there are times when you just think, actually, what I want to do is just put the kids in the back and just, you know, drive them to school, or, you know, go on holiday down to Cornwall, or stick your luggage in it and go across the west coast of France or something. Do you need nearly 700 horsepower for that? No, I'd argue you don't. This is more than adequate. How does it drive? Well, pretty much it drives as before. So you've got a double wishbone suspension up front, you've got a 5-link setup on the rear axle as well. So in terms of the way the car handles, the way the car drives, it's pretty much standard iX as you've seen before. Again, if you've had an iX and you get in this new one, you will appreciate the small differences there are. There's not massive big changes, you know, it's not a new model, it's a revised model. So everything you like about your old car is still there, you know, but with some tweaks and some changes just to make it that wee bit better. And it is better, there is no doubt in my mind than that. It's a nicer car to drive, dare I suggest, than the Audi, than the Q8 e-tron. I think it's a better car, it's a more engaging car to drive than the Mercedes EQE SUV, and I like the EQE SUV, that's a good car. Is it as good as a Polestar 3? Well, there's the thing, you know, because that car I think is superb to drive, and I really, really rate the Polestar 3, and I think it drives brilliantly. You know, it drives like a car that shouldn't be that size, you know, it drives like a much smaller car. Does it drive as well as that? I'd need to spend more time with this. I've just got a quick drive in this today, and obviously the walk around that I've done in it. But as I say, I can feel the differences. I can feel the performance gains that they've done on this car. And as I say, you know, it's all very nice having the M70. You know, they've said, oh, do you want to take the M70? I said, actually, no, this is the one I want to try. This is the one I want to see what it's like. And it's really good. It feels as, yeah, it feels like the old 50. In the sense of the performance, you know, so you're actually getting the performance of the old 50 in this new 45. And if I put my foot down, it really takes off. It really accelerates. Yeah, this is a good car. There are a lot of changes to it. And it's also, you know, the thing about it that I really, really like is how refined it is. You know, they've got the acoustic glass on it. You know, of course, there's the BMW iconic sounds or whatever they call it, you know, in the thing you can have that and change that and all the rest of it. You don't need to have that on. I mean, you can hear it there as I accelerate, but you can turn those off. But in terms of the way the car actually drives, the way it handles, the way it rides is point in case. It rides beautifully, this car. It's a really, really nice car to drive. It handles, you know, city streets. You know, we're running around Barcelona today. You know, it handles out on the country roads that we've had the car out on as well. You know, it's not an inexpensive car. It shouldn't just be, you know, like, you know, a master of one. It should be a jack of all trades. And the new iX is. It's a really good car. It always was. And all BMW have done is made it better. And that's no bad thing. I'll tell you what is nice about it, is how manoeuvrable it is for such a big car. You know, you sit quite high in it, you've got quite a nice commanding driving position, so you get to see the extremities of the car. Obviously there's a huge amount of tech on it, you know, with cameras and, you know, sensors and so forth. But other than that, it's just the actual physicality of the car is quite good. So, you know, your driving position, you turn around, there's a lot of glass on it. You know, that rear C, sort of like, you know, that rear three-quarter position, you know, just past that D pillar, you know, it gets a bit thick there. But other than that, it's actually, you know, as I say, it's very easy to place. And as I say, I'm driving around Barcelona, not a place I know particularly well, if I'm being blunt about it. But, you know, it is relatively simple for a big 2 whatever ton SUV just to sort of, like, you know, easily position it in the lanes and make quick lane changes in the city, and, you know. And then when you get it up on the open road, as I say, that suspension, that chassis that BMW have got, you know, it really does handle it well. The suspension's well judged. I'd probably say that's one of the things that I really love about the car, as I say, over the likes of the Audi and even the Mercedes. It doesn't feel quite, it almost, and I know it's a bit of a corny sort of, like, you know, thing to say. A lot of people sort of, like, you know, use this expression, but it sort of does shrink in size a little bit when you drive it. You know, it doesn't feel quite as big and sort of like unwieldy in some respects as the EQE SUV or EQS SUV. It just feels a little bit tighter than that. Doesn't feel quite as tight as, say, a Porsche Macan, but then it's a bigger car than a Macan. But on the whole, as I say, the improvements that they've made are welcome improvements. I like the new design. I like, especially with the colours that they've got here, this Ocean Race Blue, I think that's what it's called, I think is lovely on it. And the interior, well, the interior's always been my big thing with this car. I absolutely adore the interior. It's so comfortable, it's so modern, but yet so easy to use as well. Yeah. You've got to get past the looks. You've got to. And as I say, I know it's not an inexpensive car, so I'm not saying it's the best car in the world or anything like silly like that, you know. But you've got to look past the looks. You've got to drive it. You've got to use it. You've got to, you know, just appreciate sort of like the quality that's gone into this. This is, you know, one of BMW's best products, you know, in terms of, you know, their electric products. You know, I always loved the little i3. I always said that was a cracking little car. And it is, and it still is. You know, it's a great second-hand buy. And in fairness, what I will say now is, you know, the price of these have come down, you know, in terms of the second-hand ones. You get an older model xDrive 50. You know, it's, you know, around about just over £40,000 now. That's the price of a new Astra. What you want to drive. So in conclusion, yes, you can feel the differences in the car. They're welcome changes. You can see the differences on the outside of it. They're very welcome as well. And they've taken nothing away that made the iX a really good car when it first came out. They've just added to it. They've just added to the breadth of its talents, and dare I suggest, made it slightly more palatable to look at on the outside. But as I say, it's going to take I think a back-to-back with a Polestar 3 for me to decide what I think is the better one to drive, which one I would, you know, say that's the one you should go to the showroom and write your check for. But if you're determined to have an iX, if you're determined to, you know, have BMW, you're a BMW customer and you're thinking of an iX, this new one, every bit as good as the old one, and then some. It's raining now in Barcelona. Right, let's talk about price now, because price has gone up, but not as much as you might think in some respects. You know, it was never an inexpensive car, let's be honest, but they haven't increased the price by as much as maybe you would think, given the changes they've made, certainly to the battery and the trims and the styling and such. Okay, so you kick the range off now with the xDrive 45, okay? Now, that comes with two trim levels. You can either have it as a Sport or an M Sport, okay? It's the only one you can get the Sport in, and that kicks us off with a price price is £74,400 in the Sport. If you want an M Sport, it's another £3,000, £77,400. xDrive 60 is only available as M Sport, and that's your next rung up, and that comes in at £92,900. And then the M70, which is its own sort of trim if you like, it's always an M Sport in that sense, that comes in at £113,300. Now that's not a cheap car, but bear in mind the old M60 was £112,000 starting price before options. So again, not that much of an increase for quite an increase and change in the car in my book. The other thing as well is, if you think about the competition, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you know, the Audi Q8 e-tron, not a cheap car. You know, in fairness, that SQ8 I had, and I don't think it drives, well, it certainly doesn't drive like an M70, but you know what I mean. So I don't like using the expression value for money, but you do seem to be getting an awful lot more with the BMW than you do get with the Audi in that sense, and certainly a much more modern car. But yeah, as I say, it's not inexpensive. Let's not kid anybody on. Right, let's talk about that competition. Because obviously the two main rivals for the car are going to be the Audi Q8 and SQ8 e-tron, and of course the Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV. That's the two, they're Germany's big three, aren't they? BMW, Audi and Mercedes-Benz. So those are the two cars you're going to see. Good cars in some respects. Not a big fan of the Audi Q8 e-tron in fairness. I think they could do more with that car, but I do like the Mercedes in fairness, though it doesn't feel quite as modern as the iX. However, things have changed since the iX was introduced 4 years ago now, and we've now got to consider other cars. There's the Polestar 3, a brilliant car. That's playing in this marketplace now. And if we're thinking about practicality, we've also got to maybe consider the Volvo EX90. That can offer up to 7 seats, remember. So, you know, those are two new players in the marketplace. And if we're talking of practicality, let's discuss two manufacturers you might not have considered before in this end of the market, but you have to. And that's Kia with its EV9 and Hyundai with its Ioniq 9. Now with the Kia, you've got seating for up to 5, 6 or 7 people. There's going to be a performance version this year, the GT. You know, it's a good car, the Kia, in terms of battery efficiency, in terms of reliability, they're on board, and styling. I think it's a great looking car. And we're going to expect big things from Hyundai as well with the Ioniq 9. So there's two more players that have entered into the market. As I say, you might not have considered before, but I do think you need to consider them. Now, if we take the M70 as a separate entity in some respects, as a performance SUV, maybe you might also consider, although it's slightly smaller, the Porsche Macan, and also as well slightly bigger, the Lotus Electra, another two cars that have come out since BMW introduced the iX. So there's certainly plenty of competition for the car. So let's take a look at what we like and what we don't like about BMW's revised iX. Well, we like the bigger battery and better range on the entry-level xDrive 45. We also like the improved styling. We still like the interior design, and the use of material still impresses us. We're big fans of the performance gains on the xDrive 45. And we like the fact that the car still feels futuristic, even against newer competition from Mercedes-Benz, Audi and Polestar. However, we do appreciate the fact the styling is still very divisive and won't suit everyone. In our opinion, the boot space is still too small for this size of car. There are still many things that are options, and we think they should really be standard. And as good as the range and battery and efficiency is, the electrical architecture maybe isn't the big leap forward for a big flagship electric vehicle. Never judge a book by its cover. Isn't that what our parents and old school teachers used to tell us? And I think there's never a better use of a phrase than what we're talking about here, the BMW iX. No, its looks still aren't going to be everyone's cup of tea, but there's no doubt in my mind that BMW certainly have improved it. And what's interesting to me is, in the face of much newer competition, bearing in mind the basics of this car is still 4 years old from when it was first launched, it's still, without doubt, one of the best cars in its class. Now, I was always a little bit let down, I felt, with the old xDrive 40, because I really liked the way the car drove, but I thought for the price we should have really got more range and better efficiency out of it. Well, they've changed that now, and now the car drives an awful lot better as well. Is it the best car in its class? Well, I think we're going to take a little bit more time with it, and I think we're going to also have to put it up against the Polestar 3 in a twin test to decide what the outcome of that one. But let me just say this, I wouldn't bet on the outcome of that being a clear-cut decision. Thank you for watching another road test review on AutoEV. As always, please make sure you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you then press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you'll be notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed this week's review, despite the musical accompaniment, then make sure you give it a little thumbs up, and of course don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about BMW's revised iX. Do you have the old one? Is it tempting you into a new one? Haven't you considered it before? Would you now consider it? As always, let me know your thoughts down below. Now remember, we're across all social media platforms as well, so we're on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, LinkedIn, so give us a follow there because every bit helps. And maybe you're not in the market for a new BMW iX, maybe you've been thinking about a used one and you're thinking, well, how do I find out what that car was like? Well, here's how you do it. Stay on the AutoEV homepage on the YouTube channel, and just at the top there's a magnifying glass. If you type the name of the car you're interested in there, then of course it's been a new car in the last 4 or 5 years. We'll have subjected it to the actual road tests that car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric car. And even down here in Spain, that is the AutoEV one. All that remains for me to say is thank you once again for supporting us. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.